regularly, after I talk about the tremendous challenges that we face in this country, I always want to end on a positive note. And I will tell you this, as daunting as the challenges are that we face, I wouldn't have undertaken this task if I didn't believe we could do it. Americans have proven again and again that they can do what they set their mind to. We have undertaken much greater challenges with a whole lot less going for us, and so I know we can do it. We will do it, but it's going to take the hard work and commitment of all of us to make that happen. So again, thank you all for being here, and I'd love to open it up for questions from you all or comments. Thank you. Yeah.
First, I'd like to thank you for coming out here. I think that's something all of us really appreciate taking the time. What I'd like to know is, I know you've been serving on the Financial Services Committee. I'm wondering, in addition to cutting costs and mandated spending, what do you think we can do to balance the budget long term?
Well, I think that the way that you balance the budget in the long term is, we do everything that we can in the short term to reduce spending. I quoted to you some of the figures that I think are completely out of whack and that have gotten us to where we are. It's not going to be easy because, I think that we have to focus on discretionary spending, but if you look at the mandatory spending, that is the drivers of our spending, you have to look at actually reforming whole programs like Medicare in order for them to survive and in order for us to balance our budget. I'm committed to a balanced budget. I would like to see us adopt a balanced budget amendment in Congress, and I've supported it. It was a bill that I co-sponsored right when I got to Washington because I think it's so important. In Virginia, we have a balanced budget requirement that's built into our Constitution. The state of Virginia cannot spend one dime more than it has coming in, and that's the way it should be in Washington, D.C. There's absolutely no reason that we shouldn't have that same requirement. Because the hole is so deep, it's not something that we can do overnight, and because it is going to require reforming programs in the long run, as well as making significant cuts. I will tell you, FY11, this last budget that we adopted, although again it was not as much as I would have liked to have cut, I can tell you it was everybody agreed it was the largest cut that had ever been made in the history of the country in terms of actual dollars, and I think that's significant. I think it suggests that we're at least heading in the right way. We've changed the debate from being how much less are we going to spend to how much are we going to cut? And I think that that's a debate that is long overdue in Washington, D.C. Let me tell you about the 2012 budget plan. Again, it cuts discretionary spending. It cuts $6.2 trillion over the next 10 years. It reforms Medicare and Medicaid, two huge drivers in our spending. And then finally, it brings our primary budget into balance by 2015. Brings our primary budget into balance by 2015, which is extremely, I think, significant and important. So a primary budget balance is simply weighing the operating costs. What you're spending versus what you're bringing in is balanced when you have a primary balance. Now what that does not include, and what it will take years to address, is it doesn't include the interest payments that we've accrued as a consequence of this reckless debt that exists in this country. That will take longer to address. But I think it's very important that we achieve primary balance as soon as possible, and our plan gets it done by 2015. Yes, ma'am. Absolutely, and I would, let me say a couple things. Number one, I think that this budget, and I think that you've got a 112th Congress that's absolutely committed to trying to address exactly what you're talking about. Those sort of programs that don't work. What they do is not only do they waste money that shouldn't be spent, but for the people who really do need it, it makes it overly difficult. And at the end of the day, in many cases, encourages the government dependency. I think we would all agree is wrong. It's just flat out wrong, the government to be encouraging dependency. We were talking earlier today about a poll or a survey that was released in the last couple of days. Wages as a part of American income today, wages, that is what people work for and earn by going to work, that represents the lowest number that it has ever been at any time, and since they've been keeping the numbers, is my understanding. 51% of income is derived from wages. 20% is derived from the people who rely on the federal government for direct payments. And that is as high as it's ever been. Stop and think about that. Now, what are we doing, the federal government, to change those numbers? I don't know that we're doing it. I don't know that in the last 2 years we did anything except encourage it. When you look at the fact that government spending went up 80% in the last 2 years. So I think that we absolutely have an obligation to offer a safety net for those who cannot help themselves for a temporary period of time, but ultimately to get them out into the workplace and doing something that's fulfilling for themselves and actually providing for themselves and for their families. I think that's what we all want. So how do we do that better? I think that's the question. I can tell you this. I don't think the federal government in Washington, D.C. has all the answers, if they have any of the answers. I think that a program like Medicaid, which is the program that is designed for the poor in this country to receive health care, those are the kinds of programs that don't need to be run out of Washington. They need to be run out of the state. The states have a far better record of innovation, of efficiency, of figuring out how to fix programs so that they actually work because they're closer to the ground, closer to the people that they represent. And I think having federal government give block grants to the states to use that money as they see fit and to try to save it in the most efficient ways and make programs that actually encourage people to go back to work, I think that's the key. And I think that this program gets that, or pushes us in that direction. This budget does. Thank you for your good question. Yes, sir. Similar to the what? Oh, right. Right. Great question. The question is twofold. One, what do we make of the fact that the S&P downgraded the future outlook for this country from stable to poor? And then secondly, what are the chances that the Paul Ryan plan gets passed? First of all, I think that the downgrading of the credit and what the downgrading of this country's credit outlook means is, it means that those in the financial sector who follow credit markets and who have every interest in making sure that those who borrow money pay it back, and who follow credit ratings, that our country's future for issuing debt and paying it back has been downgraded because our balance sheet is so far out of whack. And it goes back to that hole that I was talking about that is so deep. I think it's just a symptom, again, of a disease that's got to be fixed in this country. And I think that it's a perfect example of why this debate is so important and why the budget debates are so important. As far as the Paul Ryan budget, I think that there is, I'm hopeful that it will be the bulk of it will be the framework for which we have an honest debate about our spending plan. And I think that the president and to some extent the majority leader in the Senate have laid down markers on what they will and won't do. But I think that we all agree that we've got to balance this. We've got to balance the budget in the long term, and then we've got to make bold and dramatic steps in the short term to get us there. So I'm hopeful that the Ryan plan will ultimately be adopted. I don't think that it won't come with. It's going to be a tough road ahead of us to get it passed. But I think at the end of the day, if the people in the United States Senate down the hall from us, and if the man in the White House are serious about living up to what I think was a mandate in November, then they're going to seriously they're going to be serious about his budget, and it's my hope that they'll ultimately adopt it. And failure to do so will have, I think, catastrophic consequences for this country. Yes, sir. Yeah, absolutely. That's part of the I think of the Paul Ryan plan is to ultimately deal with Social Security. I don't know that you're going to see it dealt with directly in this 2012 budget, but I think that you'll see a plan worked up during this 112th Congress, and I think that you will, before this 2-year Congress is up, I think you will see action that will be taken on Social Security. Again, as I said before, Social Security is in dire straits as a consequence of what you just said, and that is you have baby boomers coming online. You've got fewer people who are paying into the system than will be living on the system. People are living longer, and they're healthier, and those are all good things. Those are all good things for our society. But there is also a price that has to be paid. So how do we close that gap? And I think looking at long-term reforms, I don't think there's anyone who says that we need to affect benefits for current seniors. But looking down the road, we have to be realistic. If we want to save the program, we have to be realistic about how the program operates. And so I think you'll see that. And again, I think failure to take bold action in that program, as well as Medicare and Medicaid, will end up leaving us no program for you when you get to be that age. Yes, sir. Well, the defense spending is a part of what we talk about as discretionary spending. So that's part of the 40%, and it is, as you indicated, a huge part. I think that the number one obligation for our country, since its founding, is to defend our citizens here and abroad from foreign enemies. And so I think that it's critical that we maintain that commitment to make sure that our soldiers in the ground are outfitted and are properly equipped to do what we ask them to do, and put their lives in harm's way so we can be free. We've got a great military. We've got that does that, and I think keeps us safe. I don't think that it's any kind of coincidence because of the hard work of the men and women in uniform, as well as in the intelligence community, that we have not had a significant terrorist attack like 9/11 since 9/11. So I think all those things, that's the perspective, that's the lens through which I look at defense spending. But with that said, I think that there are places that we can save money in the defense budget. But I think I think if you just drive by the Pentagon and you consider all the work that goes on there, is there bureaucracy that can be cut in the Defense Department? You better believe it. And I think that Secretary Gates certainly has offered savings that he has proposed through the budgeting process that I think we need to take advantage of. So I think that we have to be realistic. I think that we need to look at cutting bureaucracy everywhere that we can. I don't think that I think that I don't think that the Pentagon should be immune from that. Now, with all that said, there are those who say, well, we need to retreat in Afghanistan, that we need to retreat in Iraq, and to them I say we've got to maintain our commitment in Afghanistan. Whether we can all disagree about whether we should be there in the first place, but in many ways that's academic. We're in Afghanistan now. We need, I think, in order to properly execute and properly protect the people, our American citizens here and abroad, we need to maintain that effort and not let up until the job is done. And with respect to Libya, I can tell you that I am very concerned that we are spending military resources there. I have not supported that. I certainly was willing to give the president the benefit of the doubt, but as details have come out and as he's finally included Congress in those, he's finally shared with Congress his thought process on that, on how he got there. And I don't understand why we're there, how that decision was made. I don't see that they have identified a real threat to American national security interests, and most of all, I don't see a marker for success and for exit, and he hasn't provided that, and for that reason, I have great concern about being there, and I don't think that we should be. And of course, that's billions of dollars that's being spent just in that one area, on that one endeavor. Yes, sir. Right. Well, unemployment rates are still, I think, unacceptably high, and I concern myself with, obviously, in Virginia, but I also concern myself primarily with what's going on in the 5th District, and those numbers continue to be high. They continue to exceed what the president said that they wouldn't go above if we adopted the stimulus package 2 years ago, and so I continue to be concerned about that. Now, it is my hope that we are seeing economic growth. I think one of the things that you have to remember about the unemployment numbers is that a lot of, if you look at the number of people who are actually working in this country, and it goes back to the other number that we talked about, the percentage of wages in this country as a part of American income. If you look at the number of people who are actually working versus people who've taken themselves out of the workforce, the unemployment numbers don't account for that. If you've been on unemployment for so long and then suddenly you go off the rolls and you don't work and you have income from somewhere else but you're not working, that you're suddenly not on the unemployment rolls anymore. So I think that that's not necessarily the best or most accurate way to look at who's working and who's not, who could be working and who's not. But with all that said, it's my hope, and from what I hear, I think people are more confident. I think they're confident for a few reasons. And I think a lot of it had to do with this last election. I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that there was some action taken at the end of the lame duck session that gave more certainty. If you look at this last election, with the election of a new House of Representatives, you take cap and trade off the table, at least from a legislative standpoint. I think that's important. I think it's also important that card check in the last election is, because of the last election, is taken off the table, which I think would be of particular interest to those of you interested in human resources. And then if you look at what happened in December before the expiration of this last Congress, one thing that there was agreement finally on was extending the tax cuts from the George Bush era for the next 2 years. That was really important because you had businesses out there who had no idea what the tax structure was going to be going forward. And that created tremendous uncertainty. It kept capital on the sideline. And I think with some of those things being addressed and people seeing that you've got at least a new majority in the House of Representatives that's serious about economic growth, I think some of that certainly has contributed to seeing employers stepping out a little bit more, investing a little bit more, and hiring new people. Yes? Well, you know, I have always tried to be supportive of the state funds for when I was in the state legislature.